"I speak 9 languages," said the poor maid's son. The Arab millionaire laughed but was shocked. The intention was to humiliate him, but the boy's reply shattered the arrogance in seconds. He not only spoke classical Arabic flawlessly, but also exposed million-dollar flaws hidden in the company's contracts. That day, a boy no one believed in made power tremble, with evidence, strategy, and fluency. The morning light streamed through the tall windows of the apartment on the Upper West Side, a wealthy neighborhood in New York City. Mary Smith adjusted her navy blue uniform for the 10th time, nervous as she always was on the days she had to bring her son to work. Liam was 14, but he carried on his shoulders a maturity that would startle any mother. He was thin, with dark hair and attentive eyes that seemed to absorb every detail of the world around him. On that Thursday morning, he held a worn backpack, patched in a few places, but always clean and organized. Mary had been working for almost 15 years as a housekeeper in the penthouse of the Caldwell family, one of the most influential business clans in New York. The residence occupied the top floor of an imposing building on Columbus Avenue, with a panoramic view of Central Park. Here, silence had a price. Every object was hand-picked. Every painting cost more than Mary would earn in a lifetime. She knew every corner of that home, every preference of the family. But she had never felt a part of that universe. It was like living in a display case where her only function was to maintain the shine without ever touching the jewels. Liam was accompanying her that morning because his school was in recess for an emergency renovation of the building. Mary had tried to leave him at a neighbor's house, but her son had insisted on coming with her. He said he needed to study in silence, far from the noise of the community where they lived in the South Bronx. His mother knew it wasn't just that. Liam had always shown curiosity about the world she inhabited only as a shadow. He wanted to understand the structure, observe the patterns, decipher the unwritten codes of that environment where power circulated disguised as politeness. As they entered through the service entrance, Mary instructed her son in a firm whisper. He was to stay in the utility room, where there was a small table and a chair. He could use the tablet she had managed to buy in 12 installments, but he had to keep the volume low. No wandering around the house, no drawing attention to himself. Liam nodded, accustomed to the invisible rules that governed the lives of people like them. Mary's routine always began the same way. Prepare the family's breakfast, organize the kitchen, check that all the dishes were spotless. Mrs. Eleanor, the Caldwell matriarch, was meticulous. Nothing escaped her critical eye. Mary had learned to anticipate every demand, to become invisible precisely by being indispensable. It was a contradiction she carried with her every day. Liam settled at the small table in the utility room and opened his tablet. His online classes had already started half an hour ago. He had been teaching himself languages for years. He started with English, then Spanish. Gradually, he discovered free platforms that offered courses in French, Italian, German. Fascinated by the complexity of languages, he had delved into Russian, Mandarin, and more recently, classical Arabic. For him, each language was a window to understanding not just words, but cultures, structures of thought, different ways of organizing reality. Mary didn't fully understand her son's passion, but she respected it. She herself had barely managed to finish high school, which was interrupted when she became pregnant with Liam at 17. The boy's father had disappeared even before he was born, and since then mother and son had been an inseparable pair. Mary worked so that her son could have opportunities she never had. Liam studied with a fierce discipline, as if every hour invested were a promise of redemption for them both. Around 10 in the morning, the penthouse began to stir. Robert Caldwell had arrived early from the office. He was a man in his 50s, tall with well-cut graying hair and a bearing that exuded authority. His company, Caldwell Investments, managed billions in real estate funds and equity stakes. Robert was known in the market for his negotiating skills and also for his toughness in professional relationships. He did not tolerate mistakes, did not accept weakness. That morning, he had come to pick up some documents for an important meeting. He was accompanied by 2 partners, businessmen Mary recognized from other visits. They settled into Robert's private office, a large room with mahogany shelves and a conference table where they closed million-dollar deals. Mary served coffee as usual and returned to the kitchen. That's when she noticed that Liam was no longer in the utility room. Her heart pounded. She quickly looked for him around the house, trying to be discreet. She found her son in the hallway near the office, standing still, observing. Through the crack of the slightly ajar door, she pulled him by the arm, frightened. "What are you doing, Liam? I told you to stay in the utility room." The boy looked at his mother with that serious expression that always unsettled her. "I'm sorry, Mum. I was just observing. They're speaking English, but they're making some mistakes." Mary felt a chill. This was not the time for Liam to show off his skills. Here, they were invisible. That's how it had to be. "Go back to the utility room, now." Liam obeyed, but Mary noticed that something had changed in her son's eyes. He was processing information, connecting patterns. She knew that way of thinking. It was the same one that made him spend hours studying until he had memorized the grammar of languages she couldn't even pronounce. The meeting lasted for almost 2 hours. When it ended, the partners said their goodbyes, and Robert asked Mary to bring him a glass of orange juice. She went to the kitchen, prepared the drink, and upon returning, was met with a scene that left her paralyzed. Liam was in the living room, standing facing Robert Caldwell. The businessman was looking at the boy with an expression somewhere between curiosity and irritation. Mary felt her legs weaken. She approached quickly, trying to diffuse the situation. "Mr. Caldwell, I'm so sorry. My son is with me today because his school is closed for renovations. He'll go back to the utility room right now." Robert held up a hand, stopping Mary. "Wait, he said he heard me speaking English. Is that true, boy?" Liam maintained a firm posture, showing no intimidation. "Yes, sir. I was in the hallway and I overheard the conversation. It wasn't my intention to eavesdrop, but I noticed some errors in interpretation." Robert let out a short, humorless laugh. "Errors? You, a boy who should be in school, are telling me I made errors?" Mary wanted to intervene, but Liam continued. "With all due respect, sir, you said, 'I agree with the terms if we can negotiate the deadline,' but I believe the intention was renegotiate. Using negotiate without the prefix could sound as if you are starting a new negotiation, not adjusting the existing one." The silence that followed was heavy. Robert narrowed his eyes, sizing up the boy. Mary felt her face burn with shame and fear. But there was something else, too. A pang of pride. Robert walked toward Liam, his height imposing. "So you speak English?" "Yes, sir, and other languages as well." "Others? How many?" "I'm studying 9 languages, some with more fluency, others still in development." Disbelief crossed Robert's face. He called his wife Mrs. Eleanor, who appeared in the room with a look of disapproval upon seeing Mary and her son there. Robert quickly told her what the boy had said. Eleanor let out a forced laugh. "9 languages? Darling, this boy can barely write properly in English. You know what public schools are like in this city." Liam did not lower his eyes. "I respect your opinion, ma'am, but I can prove it." Robert, now amused by the situation, crossed his arms. "All right, prove it. Say something in another language. But I don't want memorized little words, I want complete sentences." Liam took a deep breath and then began to speak in classical Arabic. The words flowed with impressive precision. The grammatical structure was perfect, the pronunciation flawless. He spoke for nearly a minute, articulating a reflection on knowledge and opportunity, on how wisdom should transcend social barriers. When he finished, the silence in the room was absolute. Mary was dumbfounded. She knew her son studied Arabic, but she had never heard him speak like that. Robert and Eleanor exchanged bewildered glances. The businessman cleared his throat, trying to regain control of the situation. "Very nice, but anyone can memorize a few phrases. That doesn't prove fluency." Liam nodded. "I understand your skepticism, sir. That's why I brought some certificates with me." He opened his worn backpack and took out a plastic folder. Inside were printed documents, language proficiency certificates issued by internationally recognized institutions. Cambridge for English, Delft for Spanish, Delft for French, Test DAF for German, certifications from Peking University for Mandarin. Each document attested to advanced levels of proficiency. Robert took the papers, examining them carefully. Eleanor came closer, equally incredulous. Mary felt her heart racing. She had never imagined her son would carry those documents with him. Liam had always been private about his studies, as if he feared someone would try to diminish his achievements. The businessman handed the certificates back to Liam, but there was still skepticism in his eyes. Impressive, I admit, but certificates can be forged, especially by people who want to impress. Mary took a step forward, her voice trembling. "Mr. Caldwell, I swear my son wouldn't lie. He studies every day, spends hours on the computer." Robert cut her off with a gesture. "Mary, I'm not accusing you, but I need more proof. If this boy really speaks all of this, he can prove it now." Liam remained calm. "I can make a video call with one of my volunteer teachers if you'll allow it. She's American and gives online classes to students from underserved communities." Robert agreed, curious now. Liam connected the tablet to the house's Wi-Fi and opened a video call app. In a few seconds, a middle-aged woman appeared on the screen. She had red hair and a warm smile. "Hi, Liam. How are you today?" Liam replied in fluent English, explaining the situation and asking her to converse with him there, in front of other people. The teacher, named Susan, cheerfully agreed. For 5 minutes, she and Liam discussed literature, international politics, and philosophy. The dialogue was natural, sophisticated, without hesitation. When the call ended, Susan added a comment. "Liam is one of my most dedicated students. His progress in the past 2 years has been phenomenal. He has a gift for languages." Robert disconnected the tablet and looked at Liam with an expression Mary couldn't quite decipher. There was astonishment, but also something more. Perhaps discomfort, perhaps reluctant respect. "You are exceptional. That's undeniable." Liam didn't smile, he just nodded. "Thank you, sir. But I didn't come here just to impress you. I came because I noticed something during your meeting." The tone shifted. Robert frowned. "What do you mean?" Liam glanced briefly at his mother, who was pale, and then turned his eyes back to the businessman. "During the conversation you had with your partners, there were some linguistic misunderstandings that could have serious consequences. When you mentioned the clause on tax compliance, the interpreter's translation was incorrect. This could result in different interpretations between the parties." Robert took a step forward, his voice hardening. "How do you know what was said? Were you spying?" Mary felt tears welling up. "Mr. Caldwell, please, my son didn't mean to—" Liam interrupted her gently. "Mum, it's okay." He looked back at Robert. "I wasn't spying. I was in the hallway waiting for my mother. The door was ajar. There was no expectation of privacy in a common area of a residence, and legally a child overhearing a conversation in a domestic setting does not constitute an invasion of privacy." Robert was visibly irritated now. "You think you know about laws too, boy?" Liam remained calm. "I read a lot. And I know you're concerned because that negotiation involves foreign partners, and a mistranslated clause could cost millions. I could help review the documents, for free if you'd like." The room fell silent again. Mary felt like she was about to faint. Eleanor, who had been watching everything with disdain, approached her husband. "Robert, you're not going to take what this boy is saying seriously, are you?" But Robert didn't answer. He was thinking, calculating. Mary knew that expression. It was the same one he wore when evaluating business deals. He was weighing whether Liam could, in fact, be useful. "How old are you, boy?" 14. "And where do you go to school?" "A public school in the South Bronx. But most of my learning comes from online courses, public libraries, and volunteer teachers." Robert walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Mary didn't know what to do. She wanted to pull her son away, apologize, and run out of there. But something held her back. Maybe Liam's firm voice. Maybe the certainty that for the first time someone was truly listening to what he had to say. "All right, Liam, I'll accept your help. Bring the documents, Mary. Let's see if this boy really knows what he's talking about." Mary felt a mix of relief and terror. She nodded and quickly left to get the folder Robert had mentioned. Meanwhile, Liam remained in the room, standing firm, with that look that seemed older than his 14 years. When Mary returned with the documents, Robert handed them to Liam. The boy took the papers, sat down at the conference table and began to read. His eyes scanned the lines with impressive speed. Mary watched nervously, while Eleanor muttered something about absurd and left the room. After 20 minutes of reading, Liam looked up. I found 3 main problems. The first is in the termination clause. The translation uses the term breach of contract, but in this specific American legal context, it should have been specified as a material breach. The distinction changes the legal interpretation and the conditions for termination. Robert sat down across from Liam, now completely attentive. Go on. Liam pointed to another section of the document. The second problem is here. The expression reasonable time was translated directly, but without defining what that means. In international negotiations, this can lead to disputes. The ideal would be to specify a time frame in business days. And the third? Liam turned the page. The third is the most serious. The jurisdiction clause is ambiguous. It says that disputes will be resolved according to applicable laws, but it doesn't specify which jurisdiction prevails. If there's a conflict, each party could claim their national jurisdiction is the correct one. Robert took the documents back, examining the sections Liam had pointed out. His face was serious, but Mary noticed something different. He was impressed, truly impressed. You're right, completely right. My legal department should have caught this. Liam showed no arrogance, he just nodded. Mistakes happen, sir, especially when working with multiple languages. But now that they've been identified, they can be corrected. Robert leaned back in his chair, observing the boy with a look Mary couldn't decipher. There was respect there, but also something unsettling, as if he were re-evaluating not just Liam, but everything around him. Mary felt she needed to intervene. Mr. Caldwell, thank you for your patience. I'll take my son back to the utility room now. No, Mary, he can stay here. I have some questions for him. Liam looked at his mother, conveying reassurance. Mary hesitated, but nodded and left the room. When the door closed, Robert leaned forward. How did you manage all this, Liam? These certificates, this knowledge. Your mother has worked here for years and earns a modest salary. Your family doesn't have resources. How? Liam met Robert's eyes without looking away. Public libraries, free online courses, volunteer teachers who believed in me. I wake up at 5 every morning to study before school. I study during lunch, I study at night. On weekends, I go to the New York Public Library and stay there all day. You don't need money to have discipline. Robert was silent for a long moment. Then something unexpected happened. He smiled. It wasn't a cynical or condescending smile. It was genuine. You remind me of someone, Liam. You remind me of myself many years ago. I also came from nothing. My father was a bus driver, my mother a seamstress. I went to public school, worked since I was 12. I got a scholarship to college and built everything from scratch, but along the way I think I forgot where I came from. Liam didn't respond. He just listened. Robert continued, his voice lower now. I became what I swore I'd never be. Someone who judges others by their appearance, by their background. You just taught me a lesson, boy, and it wasn't just about languages. He stood up and extended his hand to Liam. The boy shook it firmly. I'm going to correct these documents and I'm going to include you in the revision. Credits, but more than that, I want you to know that doors have opened here today. I don't know which ones yet, but they've opened. Liam said thank you and left the room. He found Mary in the kitchen, distressed. She hugged him tightly, whispering, What did you do, son? What did you do? Liam hugged his mother back, feeling the weight of that moment. I did what had to be done, Mom. And this is just the beginning. Mary didn't fully understand what her son meant, but something told her that day would change everything. For better or for worse, nothing would ever be the same. And as they returned home that night on the crowded bus that crossed the city back to the South Bronx, Liam looked out the window and planned his next steps. Because he knew there was much more at stake than just impressing a businessman. There was justice to be served. There were truths to be revealed. And he was just getting started. The days following that encounter were unlike anything Mary had ever experienced. Robert Caldwell had subtly changed the way he treated her. They weren't grand gestures, but small signs that didn't go unnoticed. A good morning said with more attention, a question about how Liam was doing in school, a glance that lasted a second longer. For someone accustomed to being invisible, every detail was monumental. Liam, for his part, didn't mention the episode again. He returned to his routine of waking up at 5 in the morning, studying before school, and spending afternoons at the library. Mary noticed, however, that her son was different. There was a contained energy about him, as if he were preparing for something. She knew that look. It was the same one he had when he was about to take an important exam or when he was planning to learn a new language. On Friday of that week, Mary received an unexpected message. Robert asked her to come to the penthouse, even though it was her day off. He wanted to talk to her and Liam. Mary's heart pounded. Was she being fired? Had the businessman regretted being kind? She called Liam, who was at the library, and asked him to meet her at the building's entrance. When they arrived, they were greeted not at the service entrance but at the main entrance. Mary felt a tightness in her chest. This wasn't normal. Liam, however, remained serene, as if he had been expecting this. Robert was waiting for them in the living room, accompanied by a woman Mary didn't know. She was young, around 30, dressed in an elegant suit and carrying an executive briefcase. Robert introduced her as Frances Moore, the Director of Human Resources at Caldwell Investments. "Mary, Liam, thank you for coming. Please have a seat." Mary obeyed, nervous. Liam sat next to his mother, calm. Frances opened her briefcase and took out some documents. Robert began to speak. "I've spent the last few days thinking a lot about what happened here. Liam, you impressed me. More than that, you made me reflect on issues I had been ignoring for years." Mary held her son's hand, not knowing what to expect. "Francis, please explain." The executive nodded. "Mr. Smith, we did a full verification of your certificates. We contacted all the institutions that issued them. They are all authentic. Furthermore, we spoke with some of your volunteer teachers. The recommendations were unanimous. You are an exceptional talent." Liam showed no surprise. He just thanked her with a nod. Robert continued. "Therefore, I'd like to make you a proposal. I want to hire you as a junior linguistic consultant for the company. You would work part-time 3 times a week, reviewing documents, participating in international meetings, and assisting with complex translations. The salary would be fair and commensurate with the position." Mary felt tears welling up. It was more than she could have dreamed of. But Liam remained impassive. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Caldwell. It's generous. But I need to ask a few questions before I accept." Robert raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Questions?" "Yes. First, I'd like to know if this offer is genuine, or if it's a way to ensure I don't speak about the errors I identified in the company's documents." The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Frances exchanged a look with Robert. Mary felt her stomach churn. What was Liam doing? Robert, however, did not get angry. On the contrary, he smiled. "You're direct, I like that. The answer is both. Yes, I want to ensure your discretion. But I also recognize that you have a talent that can be useful to the company." "I have no problem admitting that," Liam nodded. "I understand. Second question, my mother has worked here for 15 years. Why has she never been promoted?" Mary pulled her son's arm, frightened. "Liam, don't." But Liam continued firmly. "My mother is punctual, dedicated, efficient. She knows this house better than anyone. Why is she still earning the same salary she started with only minor adjustments?" Frances looked at Robert, who maintained a neutral expression. The executive cleared her throat. "Mr. Smith, salary matters of other employees are not appropriate for this discussion. With all due respect, they are. Because if the company recognizes my talent, it should also recognize hers. Otherwise, this offer is just a way to buy me off, not to value competence." Mary wanted to disappear. She had never imagined her son would be so bold, but at the same time, she felt immense pride. Liam was defending her in a way she had never been able to do for herself. Robert leaned back in his armchair, studying the boy. "You're brave, Liam, or very naive. I don't know which yet, but I'll tell you one thing. You're right. Your mother deserved to be promoted a long time ago. And the reason it didn't happen isn't because of her lack of competence. It's because in environments like this, people like you are seen only as cogs in a machine, useful, but replaceable. Mary felt the sting of those words. It was the raw, unvarnished truth. Robert continued, "But I'm willing to change that. Francis, prepare a promotion contract for Mary. She will become the supervisor of the domestic services team with a 50% salary increase and full benefits." Mary covered her mouth with her hands, incredulous. The tears were flowing freely now. Francis jotted something down on her tablet, maintaining a professional expression. Robert turned back to Liam. "And, as for you, do you accept the proposal?" Liam looked at his mother, who nodded, emotional. Then he turned his eyes back to Robert. "I accept, with one additional condition." Robert arched an eyebrow. "Which is, I want the company to create a scholarship program for young people from communities like mine. Not just symbolic scholarships, but real opportunities, vocational courses, mentorships, internships. Something that makes a real difference." Francis intervened. "Mr. Smith, that would require a significant investment. It's not something that can be decided just like that." Liam kept his gaze fixed on Robert. "I know. That's why I'm willing to help structure the program. I can work with the human resources team to create fair and efficient criteria, but that is my condition." Robert was silent for a long moment. Then, to Mary's surprise, he extended his hand to Liam. "You have a deal. We'll create this program, and you'll help me make sure it's done right." Liam shook the businessman's hand, sealing the agreement. When they left the penthouse, Mary hugged her son in the elevator, crying. "How did you do it, Liam? How did you have the courage to say all that?" Liam hugged his mother back. "Because I learned from you, Mom. You always taught me that respect isn't given, it's earned, and that sometimes we have to fight for what's right, even when it seems impossible." Mary smiled through her tears. "But you scared me. I thought he was going to throw us out." Liam smiled. "I knew he wouldn't. Because he saw me as a reflection of who he once was. And no one wants to destroy their own history." In the days that followed, the news of Liam's hiring and Mary's promotion spread quickly among the staff of the mansion and the company. The reactions were mixed. Some celebrated, seeing it as an opening for other hidden talents to be recognized. Others were suspicious, believing Liam had taken advantage of a privileged situation. In the company, the resistance was even greater. Senior executives openly questioned Robert's decision to hire a teenager without a formal academic background. There were rumors that the businessman was getting old, losing focus, being manipulated by sentiments unsuited to the business world. Liam started work the following Tuesday. Francis escorted him to the International Relations Department, where he would be based. The room was large, with several workstations occupied by professionals of varying ages. When Liam entered, accompanied by Francis, the chatter ceased. Everyone looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Francis introduced Liam to the team. "This is Liam Smith, our new junior linguistic consultant. He will primarily be working on reviewing contractual documents and providing support in multilingual meetings. I expect everyone to cooperate with him." One of the executives, a middle-aged man named Morris, couldn't contain his irony. "Junior linguistic consultant, how old is he? 14. What kind of consultation can a boy give?" Liam was not intimidated. He looked at Morris calmly. "I can help identify translation errors that could cost the company millions, like what happened in the contract with the German partners last week." Morris turned pale. "How do you know about that?" Liam kept his voice steady. "Because I reviewed the document, and I found 3 serious flaws that, if not corrected, would have led to an international legal dispute." The silence in the room was absolute. Francis intervened, trying to ease the tension. "Liam is here to contribute, not to create friction. Let's all work together." In the following days, Liam proved his worth. He reviewed contracts in English, French, German, and Mandarin, identifying inconsistencies that had gone unnoticed by professional translators. He participated in video conferences with international partners, facilitating communication and preventing misunderstandings. His ability to switch between languages fluently impressed even the most skeptical. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Liam noticed the suspicious glances, the malicious comments whispered in the hallways. Some colleagues treated him with condescension, as if he were a child playing grown-up. Others simply ignored him, refusing to accept that a teenager without a degree could be there. It was during one of these weeks that Liam met Sophia, Robert's daughter. She was 17, attended an elite private school and rarely appeared at the company. But that day she was there to pick up some documents her father had forgotten at home. Sophia was beautiful, with long brown hair, light eyes, and an air of confidence that came from someone who had never had to fight for anything. When she entered the department where Liam worked, everyone stood up to greet her. She smiled politely, but there was a distance in that smile, as if she were fulfilling a social protocol, not genuinely interested in the people around her. That's when she saw Liam. He was focused on a document, headphones on, oblivious to the movement. Sophia approached, curious. "You're the boy my father hired?" Liam looked up, taking off his headphones. "I am. Liam Smith." Sophia extended her hand, and he shook it. She had a firm grip, surprisingly strong. "I've heard about you. They say you're a language genius." Liam smiled, without arrogance. "I'm not a genius. I just dedicate a lot of hours to studying." Sophia pulled up a chair and sat next to him without asking permission. "My father doesn't usually make hires like this. He's very traditional. What did you do to impress him?" Liam hesitated. "I'd rather not go into details. But I can say I showed competence where there was a need." Sophia laughed. "Diplomatic. I like that." She leaned a little closer. "Can I ask you a personal question?" "Depends on the question." "You're Mary's son, aren't you? The employee at our house." Liam kept his expression neutral. "I am." Sophia nodded slowly, as if processing that information. "It must be strange. Your mother has worked for my family for years, and now you're here, working alongside graduate executives." Liam felt a discomfort at that comment, but he remained calm. "I don't see it as strange, I see it as fair. Competence has no social origin." Sophia smiled, but there was something different in that smile now. Something that looked like genuine respect. "You're right. I'm sorry if that sounded arrogant. Sometimes I speak without thinking." Liam relaxed a little. "It's okay. It happens to everyone." In the following days, Sophia started showing up at the company more often. She always found an excuse to stop by the department where Liam worked. She would ask about languages, ask for study tips, comment on movies and books. Liam, initially reserved, began to open up. He discovered that, despite their social differences, Sophia was intelligent, inquisitive, and, contrary to her appearance, dissatisfied with the life she led. She told Liam she felt trapped in a bubble. Everyone around her expected her to follow a predetermined path, study business, join her father's company, marry someone from an equally influential family. But she had other dreams. She wanted to study journalism, travel the world, experience realities different from her own. Liam listened, understanding that in different ways, they both felt like prisoners of others' expectations. He for being seen as someone who should be content with crumbs. She for being seen only as an heiress, not as an individual. Mary, upon learning of the growing friendship between Liam and Sophia, became worried. One evening, as they were having dinner in their small apartment, she voiced her concerns. "Liam, you need to be careful. Sophia is the boss's daughter. People will talk. They'll say you're taking advantage of the situation." Liam put his fork down, looking at his mother. "Mom, Sophia and I are just friends. She's helping me understand the corporate environment better, and I'm helping her with languages. There's nothing more to it." Mary sighed. "I know, son, but the world doesn't see things that way, especially when there are class differences. People will always find a reason to judge." Liam knew his mother was right, but he also knew he couldn't live his life in fear of others' judgment. He had come too far to back down now. It was on a Friday, almost a month after he was hired, that everything changed again. Liam was reviewing a contract when he noticed something strange, a clause that made no sense, neither linguistically nor legally. It was as if someone had intentionally inserted that passage to hide something. He spent hours analyzing the document, cross-referencing, comparing it with other similar contracts. And then he found it. That clause concealed an illegal tax maneuver. Someone inside the company was embezzling funds through a shell subsidiary abroad. Liam's heart pounded. This was serious, very serious. He needed to tell someone, but who? If he told Frances, she could be involved. If he told Robert, he could be accused of making up stories to get ahead. That's when he decided to do what he did best: gather evidence. Over the next few days, Liam worked discreetly, copying documents, cross-referencing information, connecting the dots. He discovered that the scheme involved Morris, the executive who had questioned him on his first day, and 2 other members of the finance department. But there was a problem. Morris was one of Robert's most trusted men. He had been with the company for over 20 years. Accusing him without irrefutable proof would be professional suicide. Liam needed more time, more information, but time was running out. He knew that soon those involved would realize someone was investigating. And that's exactly what happened. On a Monday, Liam arrived at work to find his station ransacked. His files had been accessed, documents were missing. Someone knew he was discovering too much. Frances called him for an urgent meeting. When he entered the room, he found not only her, but also Morris and the company's chief legal officer. "Liam, there's been an anonymous complaint against you. It says you're accessing confidential documents without authorization and sharing sensitive company information with third parties." Liam remained calm, though his heart was racing. "That's not true. I have authorization to review all the documents I've accessed. It's in my contract." Morris interjected, his voice harsh. "But you don't have authorization to copy those documents and take them outside the company. That's a breach of confidentiality." Liam looked directly at Morris. "I didn't take anything outside the company. But since we're talking about breaches of confidentiality, maybe we should discuss the shell subsidiary that's being used for embezzlement." The silence that followed was icy. Morris turned pale. The legal officer frowned. Frances looked from one to the other, confused. "What are you talking about, Liam?" Liam took a deep breath. He was about to cross a line of no return. "I'm talking about a money laundering operation that's happening within this company, and I have proof." Morris stood up abruptly. "This is a preposterous accusation. You're a kid who's been here for a month, and you think you can accuse senior executives of crimes." Liam was not intimidated. "I can when I have evidence, and I do. Documents, emails, bank transfers, everything that proves funds are being funneled through a shell company in the Cayman Islands." Frances intervened. "Liam, these are very serious allegations. If you can't prove—" "I can and I will, but not here. I want to speak directly with Mr. Caldwell, and I want an independent lawyer to be present." Morris took a threatening step forward. "You're digging your own grave, kid. You think you're going to get out of this without consequences?" Liam stood firm. "The only consequences I'm worried about are those of staying silent when something wrong is happening." The meeting was adjourned. Frances called Robert, who was on a business trip, and reported the situation. The businessman ordered that no one touch Liam until he returned the next day. Liam left that room knowing he had just started a war, but he also knew he couldn't back down. Not after coming this far, not after everything his mother had sacrificed for him. That night, when he told his mother what had happened, Mary cried. She cried from fear, from pride, from desperation. She knew her son was doing the right thing, but she also knew how much it could cost. Liam hugged his mother, whispering, "It's going to be okay, Mom. I promise. It's going to be okay." But as he said it, he looked out the window of their small apartment, at the city lights twinkling in the distance, and wondered if he really believed his own words, or if he was just trying to convince himself that he had made the right choice. Because at that moment, with everything about to either collapse or transform, Liam Smith, at 14 years old, faced the weight of decisions that could change not only his life, but the lives of everyone around him. and there was no turning back. The game had begun, and he had to win. Robert Caldwell returned to New York the next morning, arriving directly at the company office without even stopping at home. The news of what had happened had disturbed him all night, not because of the accusation itself, but because of what it represented. If Liam was right, it meant he had been deceived for years by someone he trusted. If Liam was wrong, it meant the boy he had begun to admire was just an opportunist. The meeting was scheduled for 10 in the morning in the main conference room. Besides Robert, Francis, Morris, the internal legal officer, an external lawyer hired in a hurry, and Liam were present. Mary had not been summoned, but Liam had insisted she be there. After all, any decision made there would directly affect her life. When everyone was seated, the tension in the air was palpable. Morris maintained an expression of controlled indignation. Francis looked worried. The external lawyer, a middle-aged man named Dr. Henry, observed everything with the professional detachment of someone who had seen similar situations countless times. Robert got straight to the point. "Liam, you've made a very serious accusation against Morris and other members of this company. I hope you have a solid basis to support it." Liam opened his backpack and took out a folder containing documents organized in plastic sleeves. "I do, sir, and I would like to present the evidence in an orderly fashion." Robert nodded. "I'm listening," Liam began. 3 weeks ago, while reviewing a partnership agreement with European investors, I noticed a clause that didn't make sense from a legal standpoint. The wording was deliberately confusing, as if to hide something. I started investigating and discovered that this clause directed a portion of the profits to a subsidiary company registered in the Cayman Islands. Morris interrupted, his voice loud. "Offshore subsidiaries are completely legal. Many companies use them for tax optimization." Liam remained calm. "I agree. But the problem isn't the existence of the subsidiary. It's what's being done through it." He opened the first folder. "This is the list of transfers made over the last 2 years. Significant amounts were sent to this subsidiary, but there is no record of these funds being returned or invested in any legitimate company project." Francis leaned in to see the documents. "How did you obtain these records?" Liam looked at her. "Through the company's internal system. My access as a consultant allows me to view contractual documents, and many of these records were attached to contracts I was reviewing." Dr. Henry intervened. "But you didn't have authorization to copy these documents." Liam nodded. "Technically, no. But when I discovered evidence of possible illegal activity, I understood that preserving this evidence was more important than following an internal protocol." Morris stood up, agitated. "This is a clear violation of company policy. You should be fired immediately for cause." Robert held up a hand, silencing Morris. "Sit down. I want to hear everything before I make any decisions," Liam continued. "I cross-referenced this data with emails I found on the shared server." He opened another folder. "In these emails, there are conversations between Morris and 2 members of the finance department discussing how to mask these transfers in the annual reports." Morris was pale now. That's a distorted interpretation. Those emails deal with normal internal audit procedures." Liam faced him. "Then why in this specific email do you write, and I quote, 'We need to ensure these movements don't appear in the consolidated reports. Use the subsidiary's account to dilute the figures.'" The silence in the room was deafening. Morris opened his mouth, but no words came out. Robert took the documents from Liam's hands, reading each line with growing attention. His face hardened with every page he turned. When he finished, he looked at Morris with an expression Mary had never seen. It was one of betrayal, of pain. "Morris, how long has this been going on?" The executive tried to compose himself. "Robert, you have to understand. It was a financial protection strategy. With the changes in tax laws, we needed to ensure the company wouldn't suffer." Robert slammed his hand on the table, making everyone jump. "Don't give me excuses. You embezzled company funds that weren't yours, and you had the audacity to try to cover it all up." Morris changed tactics. He tried to appeal to their shared history. "Robert, we've worked together for 20 years. You trust me. This kid showed up a month ago and is trying to destroy us. He's the son of a housekeeper. Are you really going to believe him over me? It was Mary who reacted. She, who had remained silent until then, stood up, her hands trembling. My son is not a liar. He never has been. And the fact that I'm a housekeeper doesn't diminish his value or mine. Morris turned to her, his contempt visible. Be quiet. You have no voice here. Robert intervened, his voice icy. Yes, she does. And you do not speak to anyone like that in my presence. Ever again. Dr. Henry asked for permission to speak. Mr. Caldwell, I understand the situation is emotionally charged, but we must proceed with caution. If the allegations are true, this could have criminal implications. We need to involve the proper authorities. Robert nodded. Francis, contact our law firm. I want them to begin a full audit, immediately. And you, Morris, are suspended until this is cleared up. Morris tried to argue, but Robert gave him no room. Leave now. The executive stormed out of the room, slamming the door. The tension eased slightly, but it was still heavy. Robert turned to Liam. You did the right thing, but you also took a huge risk. If you didn't have enough proof, your career would have been over before it even began. Liam met Robert's eyes. I knew I had proof, and I knew I couldn't stay silent. In the days that followed, the audit revealed the extent of the scheme. Morris and 2 other executives had embezzled over $2 million over 3 years. The money was scattered in offshore accounts, real estate investments in tax havens, and even in shares of competing companies. The news leaked to the press. Newspapers reported the scandal with sensational headlines. Caldwell Investments was at the center of a reputational crisis. Clients began to question the company's integrity. Shareholders demanded explanations. It was Sophia who sought out Liam during that turbulent week. She found him in the company library, where he had taken refuge to escape the curious stares and whispers in the hallways. Can I sit? Liam nodded. Sophia pulled up a chair, but didn't speak immediately. They sat in silence for a few minutes until she finally said, My father is devastated. He trusted Morris like a brother, and now he finds out he's been betrayed for years. Liam closed the book he was reading. I'm sorry, Sophia. I didn't want to cause your father pain, but I couldn't let it continue. Sophia touched his hand, a gentle gesture. I know. And deep down he knows it too. But it's hard for him to accept that he was deceived, that he didn't see the signs. Liam looked at her hand on his. He felt something different when he was near Sophia, a connection he couldn't quite explain. Your father is a good man, he just lost his way. But there's still time to rebuild. Sophia smiled sadly. You talk like you're much older than you really are. Liam returned the smile. Sometimes life forces us to grow up too fast. They stayed there side by side, in a comfortable silence, until Francis appeared, looking for Liam. There was an urgent meeting with investors, and Robert wanted Liam to be present to explain how he had uncovered the scheme. The meeting was tense. Investors demanded guarantees that something like this would not happen again. Robert presented a restructuring plan, including quarterly independent audits and the creation of an ethics committee, but it was Liam who brought the proposal that had the most impact. Gentlemen, I understand everyone's concern. Trust has been broken, and it can't be rebuilt overnight. That's why I'd like to suggest something, that the company create a linguistic compliance program. Many of the errors that allowed this scheme to happen came from communication failures, inaccurate translations, and loopholes in poorly written contracts. If we have a dedicated team to review and standardize all company communication, we can prevent not only fraud, but also losses from misunderstandings. One of the investors, a white-haired gentleman, leaned forward. That's interesting. But who would lead this program? Robert replied. Liam would work as the lead consultant, supervised by our legal department. He has already demonstrated the competence to identify problems that experienced professionals missed. Another investor questioned. But he's only 14. He doesn't have a complete academic background, Liam intervened. It's true that I'm young and don't have a college degree, but I have international certifications that prove my proficiency, and, more importantly, I have the perspective of someone who isn't jaded by the habits of this environment. Sometimes it's precisely the outsider who can see what's wrong. The argument was convincing. By the end of the meeting, the plan was approved. Liam would be the coordinator of a new linguistic compliance department, with a small but qualified team working under his guidance. Mary, upon hearing the news, hugged her son with tears in her eyes, but also with concern. "Liam, this is too much for you. You're still a child. You shouldn't be carrying all this weight." Liam held his mother's hands. "Mom, I chose to be here. No one forced me. And if I can make a difference, if I can help create a fairer environment, then it's worth it." Mary looked at her son, seeing in him a mix of the boy she had raised and the man he was becoming. She knew she couldn't protect him from every challenge, but she could be by his side. It was around this time that something unexpected happened. Morris, while being questioned by the police during the criminal investigation, revealed that he had not acted alone, that he had been pressured by someone even more powerful within the company, someone who was above all suspicion. The revelation shocked everyone. The person mentioned by Morris was Theodore Miller, vice president of Caldwell Investments and Robert's brother-in-law. The husband of Beatrice, Robert's younger sister, Theodore had always been seen as a trusted member of the family. When Robert found out, he felt as if the ground had disappeared from under his feet. It wasn't just an employee who had betrayed him. It was family. His own sister was married to someone who had stolen from the company, who had put everything at risk. Robert called a family meeting at the penthouse. Beatrice arrived nervous, already knowing what it was about. Theodore tried to maintain his composure, but was visibly shaken. "Is it true, Theodore? Were you behind all this?" Theodore hesitated, then nodded. "It was a matter of survival, Robert. My family's business is going bankrupt. I needed funds to save it. I thought I could replace the money before anyone noticed." Robert closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. "You could have come to me, asked for help, but you chose to steal. You chose to betray." Beatrice started to cry. "Robert, please. He's my husband. He made a mistake, but—" Robert interrupted her, his voice firm but not hostile. "Beatrice, I love you. You're my sister. But that doesn't change what he did. And I can't let it go." Theodore was removed from the company and criminally indicted. Beatrice's marriage fell into crisis. The Caldwell family, which had always seemed unshakable, was falling apart. It was Sophia who suffered the most from all this. Seeing her father struggling to keep the company afloat, her aunt plunged into depression, her family fragmenting. She sought out Liam more and more, finding in him a safe harbor in the midst of the storm. One afternoon, sitting in the penthouse garden, Sophia vented. "I always thought my family was perfect, that we had everything figured out, but now I see we were just good at hiding the problems." Liam looked at her. "No family is perfect, Sophia. They all have their fractures. The difference is how we choose to deal with them." Sophia turned to him, her eyes welling up. "How do you do it, Liam? How do you stay so calm in the midst of so much chaos?" Liam smiled sadly. "I don't. Sometimes when I'm alone, I feel scared. Scared I did the wrong thing. Scared I destroyed more than I fixed. But then I remember why I started all this, and I remember that in the end, the truth is always better than a lie, even when it hurts." Sophia moved closer to him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for being here, for being real." Liam felt his heart race. He was beginning to understand that his feelings for Sophia went beyond friendship. But he also knew that this was dangerous territory. They came from different worlds, and as much as she accepted him, not everyone around them would. Mary noticed the change in her son. She saw how he spoke about Sophia with a different light in his eyes, and though she knew it could bring complications, she didn't have the heart to warn him. Liam already carried too many burdens. He didn't need more worries. The linguistic compliance program began to operate. Liam assembled a small team, including 2 experienced translators and a lawyer specializing in international contracts. Together, they reviewed all of the company's active contracts, identifying and correcting dozens of flaws that could have been costly in the future. The reputation of Caldwell Investments began to recover. Clients who had pulled away returned, impressed by the transparency and the measures taken. The company not only survived the scandal but emerged stronger. Robert, in a private conversation with Liam, admitted, "You saved this company. More than that, you saved me from becoming someone I would despise." "Thank you." Liam accepted the thanks with humility. "I just did what I thought was right, Mr. Caldwell. The rest was what you built." But even with the victories, Liam knew there were still challenges ahead. The company was recovering, but society around him still looked at him with suspicion. A teenager from a humble background holding a position of trust in a billion-dollar company was something many couldn't accept. Malicious comments circulated on social media. Articles questioned the legitimacy of his hiring. Some even went so far as to insinuate that there was something improper in the relationship between him and the Caldwell family. Liam tried to ignore it, but it was difficult, especially when the criticism began to affect his mother. Mary, now a supervisor, also faced resistance. Some employees treated her with resentment, as if she had gotten there through favoritism, not merit. One night, mother and son talked about it. Mary was exhausted, emotionally drained. "Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing, Liam. Wouldn't it have been better to stay in our place, without drawing attention?" Liam held his mother's hand. "Our place is wherever our competence takes us, Mom, not where others think we should be. And yes, it's hard. But giving up now would be letting them win, and I won't allow that." Mary smiled, squeezing her son's hand. "You're stronger than I ever was." Liam shook his head. "I'm strong because you taught me to be. Everything comes from you." That night, as he looked at the city through the apartment window, Liam made a silent promise. He would not stop. He would keep fighting, keep proving his worth, keep opening doors not just for himself, but for all those who, like him, had been relegated to the shadows for too long. Because the battle wasn't just his, it belonged to all the invisible ones, and he would be their voice, whatever the cost. Even if the price was high, even if the road was long, because in the end it wasn't just about personal success. It was about justice. And justice, Liam had learned, is not requested. It is earned, step by step, word by word, language by language, until the world has no choice but to listen. 6 months had passed since the day Liam had first entered that penthouse, carrying only a worn backpack and a knowledge no one expected. Now, on a sunny Saturday morning, he stood on the stage of the Caldwell Investments Auditorium, about to present the scholarship program he had helped create. The auditorium was packed. There were young people from communities all over New York City, accompanied by their parents, public school teachers, representatives from NGOs, journalists, and in the front row, Mary, in a new dress she had bought with her first supervisor's salary. Next to her, Sophia smiled proudly. Robert was there too, observing everything with an expression that mixed satisfaction and redemption. Liam adjusted the microphone, took a deep breath, and began. "Good morning, everyone. My name is Liam Smith. I'm 15 years old, and 6 months ago, I was sitting where many of you are now, not knowing if there would be a place for me, not knowing if anyone would believe in my potential. But today I'm here to say that there is a place, there is an opportunity, and you deserve to be here just as much as anyone else." The audience applauded. Liam continued, telling his story. He didn't omit the difficulties, the prejudices he faced, the nights he doubted himself, but he also spoke of the victories, of the people who believed in him, of the importance of never giving up. When he finished, he presented the program. There were 50 full scholarships for vocational courses in fields like technology, languages, business, and communications. In addition, each scholarship recipient would have a mentor from the company, someone to guide them not just academically but professionally. And at the end of the course, there would be opportunities for paid internships at Caldwell Investments and partner companies. The most important thing, Liam emphasized, is that this program is not charity. It's recognition of talent. You are not here because someone took pity on you. You are here because you have potential. and we as a company need you as much as you need this opportunity." The presentation was a success. The young people signed up enthusiastically. Parents cried, grateful. It was a moment of real hope, not just empty promises. After the event, Robert called Liam for a private conversation in his office. When they entered, Mary was also invited. Robert asked them both to sit down. "I called you here because I need to thank you, and because I need to apologize." Mary and Liam exchanged surprised glances. Robert continued, his voice thick with emotion. "I spent decades building this company. I accumulated wealth, power, influence. But in the process, I forgot about people. I forgot that behind every employee there is a story, a struggle, a dream. You reminded me of that. Liam, you showed me that competence has no address, no last name, no social origin. And Mary, you taught me, with your quiet dignity over these years, that respect cannot be bought, it is earned." Mary wiped away her tears. "Mr. Caldwell, you were always fair to me." Robert shook his head. "No, Mary. I was convenient. I kept you in the place that was useful to me without ever truly recognizing your worth. And that changes now." He pushed an envelope across the desk. "This is your new contract. You will no longer be a supervisor. You will be the HR coordinator for the services sector, with a commensurate salary and benefits." Mary opened the envelope with trembling hands. When she saw the numbers, she covered her mouth in disbelief. "I don't know what to say." "Say you accept, and that you will help make this company a place where people like you and your son are not the exception, but the rule." Mary nodded, moved. "I accept, and I promise to do the best job possible." Robert turned to Liam. "And you, young man, do you have plans for the future?" Liam smiled. "Many. Want to finish high school, then major in international relations or linguistics, continue studying languages, and if possible, work in organizations that promote social justice through communication." Robert nodded, impressed. "You're going to go far, Liam. Farther than I ever did, because you have something I lost along the way. Purpose. Never lose that." In the weeks that followed, changes continued to happen. The scholarship program became a national benchmark. Other companies began to approach Caldwell Investments to understand how to implement similar initiatives. Liam was invited to speak at schools, universities, and corporate events. His story inspired not only young people from underserved communities, but also executives who had become comfortable in their positions of privilege. Mary, in her new role, implemented inclusion policies that transformed the company's culture. She hired people from diverse backgrounds, created a reporting channel for cases of discrimination, and established a leadership development program that prioritized competence over family connections. Sophia, inspired by everything she had seen, decided to change her career plans. She abandoned the idea of studying business to please her father and enrolled in a journalism program. She wanted to use her voice to tell stories like Liam's, to give visibility to the invisible. The relationship between Liam and Sophia evolved, not in a scandalous or inappropriate way, but with the naturalness of two young people who understood each other. They studied together, talked about books and movies, supported each other through difficult times. And although romantic feelings were emerging, they both knew they needed to respect the right timing. Liam was only 15, Sophia 17. There was much to be lived before making definitive decisions. Mary, observing their friendship, initially feared others' judgment, but she spoke to Robert about it, and the businessman was categorical. "If my daughter has chosen Liam as a friend, it's because she sees in him what I see, an extraordinary young man, and anyone who has a problem with that can speak with me personally." That declaration, made at an extended family meeting, silenced many tongues. Robert was publicly defending Liam, establishing that the boy was not just an employee, but someone who had earned the family's respect. One of the most emotional moments of those months occurred when Liam was invited to give a speech at his old public school in the South Bronx. When he entered the dilapidated auditorium, with its broken chairs and peeling walls, he felt a tightness in his chest. This was where it had all begun. This was where he came from. The students looked at him with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. To many, Liam was a distant legend, someone who had achieved the impossible. But when he started speaking, shattering that image, telling them about his insecurities, his mistakes, his fears, the students identified with him. "I'm not special," Liam said. "I'm just like you. The difference is, I was lucky enough to find people who believed in me. And now I want to be that person for you. I want you to know that it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is where you're going, and you can go as far as you want, as long as you're willing to work for it." A student raised his hand timidly. "But what if nobody gives us a chance?" Liam looked directly at him. "Then you create your own chance. Study, learn, become so good at what you do that it's impossible to ignore you. That's what I did, and if I could do it, you can too." After the speech, teachers hugged Liam, grateful. One of them, the English teacher who had always encouraged him, said with tears in her eyes, "I always knew you would be special, Liam, but you've surpassed even my wildest dreams." Liam hugged her back. "I wouldn't be anything without teachers like you. Thank you for never giving up on me." In another significant moment, Liam received an unexpected email. It was from Morris, the executive who had tried to sabotage him. In the message, Morris apologized. He admitted he had acted in a cowardly and petty manner, driven by envy and fear of losing his position. He said that in prison, where he was awaiting trial, he had had time to reflect on his choices and his prejudices, and that, while he didn't expect forgiveness, he wanted Liam to know that his example had made him question many things. Liam read the email several times before replying. When he did, he wrote with honesty, "I don't know if I can completely forgive you, Mr. Morris. What you did hurt many people, including my family. But I recognize your courage in admitting your mistakes, and I hope that when you get out you will use this experience to become a better person. We all deserve a second chance." Liam's response circulated internally at the company, and many were impressed by his maturity. This 15-year-old boy demonstrated an emotional wisdom that many adults did not possess. Beatrice, Robert's sister, also underwent a transformation. After her divorce from Theodore and the scandal, she fell into a deep depression. But gradually, with therapy and family support, she began to rebuild herself. And it was Liam who, surprisingly, helped her at a crucial moment. One day she sought him out at the company, asking to talk. She was fragile, vulnerable. She said she felt ashamed for not realizing what her husband was doing, for having been complicit even if unconsciously. Liam listened patiently, and when she finished, he said something that left a profound mark on her. "You are not responsible for his choices, but you are responsible for your own choices from now on. And one of the things I've learned is that it's never too late to start over, to become who you really want to be." Beatrice hugged Liam, crying, "Thank you for not judging me, for seeing me as a person, not just as part of this whole mess." Liam returned the hug. "We all deserve that chance." Months after that first Saturday launch of the program, the graduation ceremony for the first class of scholarship recipients took place. The event was held in a luxury hotel, sponsored by the company, but organized by the students themselves. Liam made sure they had an active voice in every detail. During the ceremony, several graduates gave emotional speeches. A young woman named Allison, who had studied programming, told how the program had changed her life. Before, she worked at a supermarket to help her mother. Now she had been hired as a junior developer at a tech startup, with a salary that would allow her family to move out of their rental and buy their own home. Another recipient, a young man named Andrew, who had graduated in English and business, specifically thanked Liam. "You showed us that it's possible, that we don't have to conform to what society defines as our place. Thank you for opening these doors." When all the diplomas had been handed out, Liam was called to the stage for a surprise tribute. Mary was there, along with Robert, Sophia, Francis, and other members of the company. They presented a video with testimonials from people Liam had impacted. Teachers, co-workers, the scholarship recipients themselves, each one telling how he had made a difference in their lives. Liam watched the video with tears streaming down his face. They weren't tears of sadness, but of fulfillment, of knowing that his efforts had been worthwhile, that he had managed to create something bigger than himself. At the end, Robert presented him with a plaque of recognition. But more important than the plaque were his words. "Liam Smith, you joined this company as a linguistic consultant, but you became so much more than that. You became the conscience of this organization, the constant reminder that success without purpose is empty. Thank you for teaching us to be better." Liam, upon receiving the plaque, looked out at the audience. He saw Mary, his mother, smiling with pride. He saw Sophia, her eyes shining with emotion. He saw Robert, a man who had learned to look beyond appearances. He saw the scholarship recipients, young people like him, full of dreams and determination. And then he spoke. "I didn't do anything alone. Every achievement of mine is the result of people who believed when I myself doubted. My mother, who worked tirelessly to give me opportunities, teachers who taught me for free, Mr. Caldwell, who had the courage to admit mistakes and change, and each of you, who inspires me every day to keep fighting. This recognition isn't just mine. It's ours, for all of us who believe that a better world is possible." The audience rose to their feet in applause, and at that moment, Liam knew he had found his place. Not as someone who conformed to what was offered, but as someone who had built his own path. Weeks later, on a quiet afternoon, Liam and Mary were in their small apartment in the South Bronx. They had received an offer to move to a better neighborhood, closer to work, but Liam had suggested they stay. That place was part of who they were, and there was no shame in that. Mary was preparing dinner while Liam studied at the living room table. It was a common scene, repeated countless times over the years. But now there was something different. There was peace. There was security. Not just financial, but emotional. "Mom," Liam called, "have you ever thought about going back to school?" Mary turned, surprised. "School, son, I'm already 42. Liam smiled. "So what? You always wanted to finish high school, go to college. Now you can. We can afford it. And you have the time." Mary dried her hands on her apron, thoughtful. "Do you think I could do it?" Liam got up and hugged his mother. "Mom, if I could teach myself 9 languages, you can do anything you want. And I'll be here to support you every step of the way." Mary hugged her son back, crying with joy. This boy whom she had raised alone amidst so many difficulties had become her greatest pride. And more than that, he had become her safe harbor. A few months later, Mary enrolled in an adult education program to get her GED. Liam helped her with her lessons, and Sophia, who had become a close friend of Mary's, also offered support. It was beautiful to see these two women, from such different generations and backgrounds, united by genuine respect. Robert, observing all of this, reflected on the changes in his own life. He had been a successful but empty businessman. Now he dedicated time not just to profits, but to social impact. He actively participated in the scholarship program, knew each student personally, and followed their progress. And gradually, other companies began to follow suit. The movement started by Caldwell Investments became a trend. Social inclusion ceased to be just talk and became practice. Liam, upon turning 16, received an unexpected offer. An international university offered him a full scholarship to study linguistics. The opportunity was incredible, but it would mean leaving the United States, leaving his mother, leaving everything he had built. He talked to Mary, who, although with a heavy heart, encouraged him to accept. "You need to fly, son. You need to see the world. I'll be fine. I have my job, my studies, my life, and I'll be here whenever you need me." Liam hesitated. "But, Mom," Mary held her son's face in her hands, "I've spent my whole life sacrificing so you could have opportunities. Now it's time for you to take them. Go, live, and know that no matter where you are, my love and my pride go with you." Liam decided to accept the scholarship, but with one condition: he would go only the following year. After ensuring that Mary was completely settled in her new life, that the scholarship program was consolidated, and that Sophia had started college. During that year of preparation, Liam matured even more. He traveled across the country giving talks, experiencing different realities, understanding that his role was not just to be an example but a multiplier. He taught other young people how to stand up for themselves, to value their knowledge, to not accept less than they deserved. And on a special night, days before his trip abroad, Robert organized a farewell dinner. The entire Caldwell family was there, along with Mary, the scholarship recipients, co-workers, and friends Liam had made along the journey. During the dinner, Robert made a toast to Liam Smith, the young man who came into our lives as a stranger and became family, who taught us that greatness is not in how much you accumulate, but in how much you share. Who showed us that change is possible when we have the courage to look at our own mistakes. Cheers to you, kid. And may the world welcome you with open arms, because you deserve the very best. Everyone raised their glasses. Liam, moved, said his thanks, but it was Sophia who asked to speak next. I wanted to say something too. When I met Liam, I was a privileged girl who thought she knew the world, but he showed me that I knew nothing, that there were entire universes I was ignoring. And he taught me that empathy isn't feeling pity. It's recognizing the humanity in every person. Liam, you changed my life, and no matter where you are, you will always have a special place in my heart. Liam looked at Sophia, and for a moment, the world around them disappeared. It was just the two of them, connected, and by something deep and true. Later, after the party had ended and everyone had gone home, Liam and Sophia stood on the penthouse terrace, looking at the city lights. Will you write to me? Sophia asked, her voice soft. Every day, if you want, Liam replied. I want. She hesitated, then continued. Liam, I know you're going far away, and I know we're still young, but I want you to know that what I feel for you is real, and no matter how much time passes, that won't change. Liam took her hand. Sophia, I feel something for you too. Something I've never felt before, but we need to be smart. You have your life here, your studies, I'll be far away. Maybe when the time is right. When the time is right, Sophia completed, smiling through her tears. I can wait. They stood there, hand in silence, until dawn began to break. The day of his departure arrived. At the airport, Mary hugged her son tightly. Take care of yourself. Study hard, and always remember where you came from. It will keep you humble and grateful. Liam hugged his mother, smelling the familiar scent of her inexpensive perfume, which was now the scent of home. I love you, Mom, and I'm going to make you even prouder. Mary smiled through her tears. I'm already proud. More than you can imagine. Sophia was there too, along with Robert. She didn't cry, she stayed strong. But Liam saw in her eyes all the contained emotion. When Liam passed through the boarding gate and waved one last time, he felt a mix of sadness and anticipation. He was leaving behind everything he knew, but he was also heading toward new challenges, new opportunities. On the plane, as New York City faded behind him, Liam looked out the window and thought about everything that had happened in the last year. How a simple trip to work with his mother had turned into a journey of transformation. How he had gone from invisible to unavoidable. How he had used his knowledge not just to get ahead, but to open doors for others. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that this was just the beginning. That there was much more to come. That the world was full of injustices that needed to be confronted. Voices that needed to be heard. Talents that needed to be discovered. Liam Smith, the 14-year-old boy who carried a worn backpack, had become Liam Smith, the 16-year-old who carried a purpose. And that purpose knew no borders, respected no limits, accepted no impossibilities. Because, in the end, it didn't matter how many languages he spoke, how many certificates he had, how many awards he received. What mattered was that he had learned the most important lesson of all. That the greatest power anyone can have is the power to make a difference in the lives of others. And that power doesn't come from background. It doesn't come from money. It doesn't come from connections. It comes from courage. It comes from knowledge. It comes from compassion. And Liam had all three in abundance. As the plane cut through the clouds toward a new continent, Liam closed his eyes and made a silent promise. He would be back. And when he returned, it would be to build even more bridges, open even more doors, light even more paths. Because he knew his destiny wasn't just to succeed, it was to ensure that others could too. And that promise he would keep, whatever it took, however long it took, Because real change doesn't happen overnight. It happens step by step, person by person, story by story. And the story of Liam Smith, son of Mary, self-taught student, linguistic consultant, agent of social transformation, was just beginning. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Liam and Mary has deeply touched your hearts. If you were moved by this journey of courage, determination and transformation, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which moment marked you the most. Was it Liam's audacity in confronting power, Mary's silent strength, Robert's awakening of conscience? Share with us. Every day we bring intense stories like this one, which reveal the deepest side of the human soul, that show that origin does not define destiny, and that courage combined with knowledge can change not just one life, but an entire structure. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode with another story that will make you reflect, feel, and believe that change is always possible. Until then, and remember, you too can be the change the world needs.